You see, it's key there. He doesn't take too much.
Doesn't want to use up all the good rolls. Which is, again, how that works.
Yeah. It's the rolling metagame.
Right.
That's what that is.
You want to save your best rolls for when your opponent has very good rolls and win with your low rolls.
You probably win die rolls a lot.
Well, I'm around 50% lifetime, but I do understand the metagame.
Good. That's really important. I expect an article from you about that.
I play as well as I can, there's a fair amount of variance.
That's true, yeah. That's weird. You think you'd be able to control it, but
you just can't.
You can't. Temple of Triumph going to start things off here for Kevin. Fabiano with a Temple of Malady. We're underway here in round number 8 from Syracuse. Gerard going to leave his card on top. Kevin will take a draw. There is a Plains. This might be a Seeker of the Way, and it is. Put Fabiano to the test early. And Gerard will take a draw. He's got a Thought Seize, so we'll see what Kevin's working with. Surprise, surprise, he's got a Mantis Rider in hand. Stoke the Flames, Valorous Dance 2. Soulfire Grandmaster and Dig Through Time will round it out.
And the most straightforward play here is take Soulfire Grandmaster and just hope that Kevin misses on blue mana for a turn or two.
Yeah.
Giving Gerard time to develop his mana and so forth.
We can't forget about Gerard's loss, though, to Heartland Fear. A Mantis Rider deck.
Well, it was much the same story where he had difficult time stabilizing the early portions of the game. He was looking at hands like this a lot with his discard spells, took a lot of damage himself, played inefficiently at a couple points early on in the game with his lands and missing colored mana, and kind of just got closed out of the game before he could leverage all the resources in his hand.
Gerard going with Valor Stance here. That'll go to the graveyard from the Thoughtseize. See another Thoughtseize in Gerard's hand. Hoping that Kevin doesn't peel a blue mana for that Mantis Rider. We'll see how he does for his draw step. Looks like he has not. There's an attack for 2. Soulfire Grandmaster. Pass the turn back over to Fabiano, who will take a draw.
And what surprised me at the play here was Courser or Crewfix that would really justify taking the Valorous Stance.
Absolutely. There's Wooded Foothills. Fabiano going to go down to 15. There's a Forest. Initially I wasn't really a big fan of Beta Lands, but
they're just classic.
I'm in. I'm
classic.
It's a beautiful forest. Top card, Doomwake Giant.
And keep in mind, Kevin can't even cast the Stoke the Flames in his hand right now.
Yeah, only one red mana.
Requisite red mana or red creatures.
Yeah. Mantis Rider was the draw.
It's scenarios like this that people sometimes point to as part of the reason to play Dragon Fodder.
Yep.
Because you are occasionally without double red and many of your creatures are white. So this kind of thing does happen sometimes. None of that's the reason to play Dragon Fodder, just that this sort of situation comes up a fair bit. And when it comes up, it's really bad.
There is nothing sexy about Dragon Fodder, but it would certainly help right now. All Jones can do is pass the turn back. Doomwake is the draw. Swamp on top. Swamp's going to enter the battlefield. That'll trigger the Courser. Up to 16. Sylvan Caryatid will be the draw next turn for Fabiano, it looks like. Here's Thoughtseize. Kevin will show the hand. 2 Mantis Riders. Dig Through Time, Stoke the Flames, and Soulfire Grandmaster.
So Kevin electing not to play the Soulfire Grandmaster last turn out of respect for the possibility of Bioblight. But I don't know what the plan is here against Bioblight anyway. And I would actually be willing to trade the 2 copies of Soulfire Grandmaster for a clearer path for the Mantis Rider in the event that Kevin draws blue mana, because these Soulfire Grandmasters are doing very little now in the face of the Courser Crewfix.
See what Fabiano's follow-up is. It'll be a Tassiger. Gerard's got the ground taken care of. Now he needs to make sure he doesn't lose in the air. Jones will draw a card. Has he found that blue mana yet? Flooded Strand would be a really nice draw here for Kevin. That does not look like that is the case, though. And he's just going to pass the turn back. Not willing to play that second Soulfire Grandmaster yet. Sylvan Caryatid the draw. Swamp on top of the deck here for Gerard.
Yeah,
I do see where you're coming from, though.
I just don't think these Soulfire Grandmasters are very good at this point. And given Gerard's mana, there's not even a guarantee he has Bioblight in the main deck. Although I suppose he's showing a lot of swamps this game. But still, I would just Kevin's way to win this game is Mantis Rider stealing it. So if Gerard's willing to use Bio Blights on 2 copies of Soulfire Grandmaster, I think that's actually a positive for Kevin.
Xenagos, the Reveler, is here. Fabiano's going to tick that up, make some mana. That'll allow him to cast a Sylvan Caryatid. And he'll pass the turn back. Jones has not found blue mana yet. Temple of Triumph is land number 3. Kevin's going to leave his card on top very quickly. You have to imagine that'll be some blue mana for Mantis Rider. There's a second Soulfire Grandmaster now. Pass the turn back over to Fabiano. Fabiano will tap and draw. Hero's Downfall. Top card is a Temple of Malady. That Courser engine really getting to work. He'll put that into play. Trigger the Courser. Take a look at a Murderous Cut.
I know it's not very efficient right now, but this card's just so good against Kevin's deck at this stage of the game that I'd be surprised if Gerard passed it up.
I think it'd be hard to say no to that. But he will. Let's see what that next card is. Temple of Malice. Xenagos maybe going up again. And it is. Here's 5 mana. Doomwake. And now it's time to come into the red zone. No great blocks here for Jones. I'm sure Fabiano wishes he had a second enchantment to play, but he doesn't, so just going to pass that turn back over to Kevin. Kevin will draw. He left his card on top. Surprise, surprise, it's blue mana.
Yeah, another enchantment there might have been enough for a concession there.
There's the first Mantis Rider. Kevin going to have to take 1 to cast it. Kevin will do some attacking. I think we might see some heroes downfalling, and we will. This does allow Jones to cast Stoke the Flames, however.
Yes, that's true, but you can't really take anything critical out from Gerard at this point.
Just Courser. Slow down that card advantage engine. Temple of Malice be turned face down. That'll be Gerard's draw. We'll go Gerard's way. And he says on the upkeep, it looks like he wants to activate Tassiger.
Yeah, knows about the Temple, not looking to draw a land at this stage, so just mills it away, gets a fresh draw step.
And he's fine with picking up a Courser, because that means that Stoke the Flames did basically nothing. Xenagos can tick up for 3 right now if it would like. Looks like Tassiger's got some interest going in the red zone. Maybe Doomwake too. Fabiano really starting to put a stranglehold on this game.
I think Gerard's still going to play a relatively passive game here because Kevin is representing the potential to gain a lot of life, so there's no big rush to try to close out the game in the course of a turn or two.
Of course, we're going to enter the battlefield. Top card of the deck is a Wooded Foothills.
But I'm sure Gerard will still take his shots in when he can.
There is Wooded Foothills. Gerard will gain a life. Wooded Foothills on top of the deck now here for Fabiano. See what else Gerard's up to this turn. Looks like it's going to be an attack for 8. And it is. Fabiano making sure this attack is safe. See if Gerard has anything else to do this turn. Very patiently establishing a game plan.
Yeah, he's got a big resource advantage in play, plus Tassiger. So there's no big rush for him to try to go for the kill. Kevin also, as mentioned before, is able to gain a fair bit of life with the board that he has. So a pure race is not what Gerard's trying to do. Of course, he wants to close out the game as fast as he can, but he can take his time doing it because he's got a pretty substantial advantage on the board and a healthy life total to work with.
Satyr token there for Fabiano after combat and a passing a turn, so going to try to continue to defend that Xenagos. Kevin's hand kind of forced, you can tell just by his body language. Going to play another Mantis Rider. It's going to knock down Xenagos a little bit. Put it down to 2. And we'll head back Gerard's way. Gerard going to sacrifice his Wooded Foothills on his upkeep. There's a forest. Of course, we'll leave him at a neutral life total. We'll see the top card here in just a moment. Urborg. So maybe we see a Tassiger activation.
I think so too. You know, he doesn't want to draw this Urborg. Also, it means that he's getting Downfall or whatever spell this is.
He's just getting Downfall.
Yeah.
Top card. Thoughtseize will be the draw. Let's see what's next. Course of Krufix. Good mechanics here from Gerard.
Yep. He's got a lot of control over his draw steps here, a ton of selection, a lot of sources of card advantage.
You see the grip there. Dig through time, Disdainful Stroke. Dig's going to go away. Stroke will be left. There's 3 mana. There's Hero's Downfall to get the Mantis Rider out of here. That's a Temple of Abandon. Courser is leaving. Xenagos is on top. Redundant copy of those, not great. There's like another Satyr token. And everybody's going to come on in.
And now the hand's force on that leads a little bit of blocking, most likely chumps or trades with the token. Both of these are pretty good for Gerard.
There are your blocks. Doomwake Giant will be blocked by Seeker of the Way. Of course, your Krufix will be double blocked by Soulfire Grandmaster. So Kevin will gain 4 life, but he's going to lose most of his board. He's left with a Disdainful Stroke in hand, and this might be his last draw step of this particular game. And it is. Gerard Fabiano is going to win game number 1 here against Kevin Jones. Done mid-range, up a game here over Just Sky Aggro. Nice job there by Fabiano establishing a game plan.
Kevin kept a bit of a risky hand there. Didn't shake out in the first couple turns, and then Gerard slowly, methodically controlled the pace of the game. Had better draw steps than Kevin's, manipulated his draw steps, generated a lot of card advantage, gained some life, and at the end of the day, Kevin was just left with a couple 2/2s in play that didn't have much of a text box.
I would think of Gerard as kind of the wacky deck builder in this matchup. I think of the Sultai control deck that he worked on and how he really got to trick some opponents with his sideboarding and his deck construction by having nothing to kill with Bile Blights and things like that. But what Kevin brings to the table from his sideboard, I can't imagine Gerard's going to expect.
So 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, 2 copies of Disdainful Stroke, 2 copies of Prognosis Phase. And then Hostilities and Erase, a Glare of Heresy, a Jace's Ingenuity, a Mammoth Spray, a Narset Transcendent, a Negate, a Sizing Rusher, and an Ugin. So I think that Disdainful Stroke and Prognostic Swings are both high-quality cards in the matchup for Kevin, as is Ugin, Negate, Jace's Ingenuity, even potentially the End Hostilities. Just cards that allow Kevin to go bigger, play more of a card advantage game, because, you know, Gerard's, at the end of the day, a Jund deck without that much card advantage. And if Kevin can overpower Gerard by just drawing extra cards or having efficient counter spells, then I think that's a very good recipe.
Gerard's sideboard, we got Nissa Worldwaker, a Duress, a Hero's Downfall, 3 Bile Blights, 2 Drought and Sorrow, another Doomwake Giant, a Farika, God of Affliction, 2 Reclamation Sage, a Dragonlord Culligan, and 2 Read the Bones.
I think the 3 copies of Bile Blight and the Hero's Downfall are excellent here. I think Duress is very good because these just high aggro decks typically bring in spells in mid-range to control matchups, and the 1 Nissa Worldwaker, not the easiest thing for Kevin's deck to handle.
Well, these players will shuffle up here for game number 2, but if you were with us last weekend for the coverage of the Star City Games Season 1 Invitational, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you know about what we're going to talk about. the change to our buy list, which was a long time coming.
Yeah, you can sell your cards much easier at StarCityGames.com with the updated buy list, which makes searching for cards and prices so much easier than on the old card. You can also print your order ahead of time and mail it to Star City Games or bring it to the vendors at any of our shows. It's a much faster process. I suggest just going on and checking it out. It's much smoother, much more efficient. StarCityGames.com/buy list. You need to be registered for the website to check out the buy list, but it's a substantial upgrade over the older one and definitely worth checking out.
I know that's something you did as well, as you just kind of clicked around, saw what was going on.
Just the searchable tabs make it much easier. You can also set conditions. So if you normally the buy list prices are posted in near mint condition. And if you have slightly played cards or moderately played cards, you don't know what you're going to get. Now you can just click those in the tabs to see what we're paying for moderately played and slightly played cards. It's just a big, big upgrade. So if you've sold cards to us in the past, both at the vendor table and through the website, this is going to make your process much easier, much more efficient.
StarCityGames.com/buy list for more information. As game number 2 here between Kevin Jones, Gerard Fabiano, just about to be underway. Fabiano, number 5 on our Season 2 leaderboard. Kevin Jones, number 2. If we ended things today, Kevin Jones would be going to our Players' Championship. He'd be joining Jacob Wilson. He'd be joining Brad Nelson. He'd be joining Jim Davis in Roanoke at the end of the year.
Even though Season 2 is short and Kevin Jones currently has the lead, the race is tight enough that he cannot rest on his laurels. I mean, he doesn't attend this weekend and he's already losing his lead. So even though it's short, there's still plenty of time for these players to get caught up, particularly Gerard, Joe Lissette, and Danny Jessup.
Yeah, even though Jessup had a really difficult tournament this week, and these things happen, he'll have to bounce back. That's all he can do, right?
Yeah, you got IQs to choose from, Legacy and Modern. You got a chance to recover.
State's next weekend, too.
Yep.
That'll give away Open Series points, so. Kevin going to be on the play here. I'm interested to see how he configured his deck, since he can go a lot of different ways given what his sideboard looks like.
Well, the thing I would get rid of if I was in Kevin's position right now is all the ground pounders. Gerard's deck is so good at blocking, the game's going to be a little bit slower. So I think Seeker of the Way has to go. So Soulfire Grandmaster has some play if the game drags out, but I think those little creatures just aren't very good here.
See some land start for these two players. Fabiano with a mana acceleration, thanks to Sylvan Caryatid, but Kevin, of course, with a Mantis Rider, because that's how he rolls.
So Kevin has left in his copies of Seeker of the Way, or at least some of them, because he drew one last turn. So
okay.
I'm curious to see exactly how Kevin's sideboarded, because if I'm in this seat, I just want to get all the little doofuses on the ground. That's not what I'm looking to do here.
3 mana, Hero's Downfall, Temple of Malice, top card, stays on top. Back to K. Jones. There's the Seeker. Shivering Reef was the land. Here's a Courser. Take a look at that top card. Dragon Lord Tarka.
Saw that card do some work earlier for Gerard.
Yes, we did. There's a Swamp, trigger the Courser, gain some life. That's certainly something that'll be on Kevin's radar. Didn't see that in the first game. Certainly sees it now, though. Jones will take a draw.
Just like Grand Prix Charlotte. It's far away, but not as far away as you think.
That's true. There's Flooded Strand. No good attacks. All Kevin do is pass the turn back. Dragon Lord Tarka is the draw. Thoughtseize on top of the deck.
So now we'll see how good Kevin's deck is at going long, because it's shaping up to be that kind of game. Dig Through Time, Elspeth, Disdainful Stroke. He's got some powerful tools when it gets here, but you have to assume Gerard's deck's a bit better at playing this kind of game.
Fabiano with a Mountain. He'll just pass that turn back. Kevin, we're going to go Stoking. Would like to get Courser out of here. It's gone. Kevin will draw. He'll attack. Gerard can't block fast enough. Thoughtseize will be the draw here for Gerard.
And Kevin's not willing to pick any sort of fight here because he doesn't want to cast a spell on main phase and then get hit by a removal spell in response and loses Disdainful Stroke shields.
In response to the Thoughtseize, Kevin is going to sacrifice his Flooded Strand. Go get an island. I think we might see a negate here.
Most likely, if Gerard's immediately putting the Thoughtseize in the graveyard, that seems to be the case.
Negate will take care of that Thoughtseize. And now here's Satyr Wayfinder. A Hero's Downfall, a Hornet Queen, a Llanowar Waste, and a Sidisi Undead Vizier. The land will go to the grip. The rest will go to the graveyard. And Fabiano has not played land just yet, so Llanowar Waste is an option. He'll deploy that, pass that turn back over to Jones, who will now play a Dig Through Time. Delving away that graveyard. And gets to take a look at 7 cards, of course take 2 with him.
And this is part of his late game power, is this card, especially because he's sideboarding in some other high impact cards, like I would imagine Prognosis Sphinx. I think Ugin's in play here, and Narset. He's got some powerful things to go find here.
Dig Through Time is all set. Kevin will draw. Start by playing a Temple of Triumph. Leave that top card on top rather quickly, so he's happy. Here's Mantis Rider. We're going to the skies. Coming on in. Fabiano have a removal spell? The answer is yes. Murderous Cut. Only needs to delve away 1 card. Wants to leave his graveyard as full as he can.
Yeah, if he resolves Tasigur, then he can go ahead and be much more precise. But for the time being, he wants to leave just delve in general as a resource he has as much of as possible.
Speak of Tasigur. There it is. Leaving Sidisi and Hornet Queen down there. Kevin has to be worried now because he knows the card that's in Fabiano's hand. It's a copy of Dragonlord Atarka. Now here's a Valorous Stance.
And that's where you saw Kevin there not use the Disdainful Stroke on Tasigur. That's already got a target in mind.
Mm-hmm. What Kevin, I think, is hoping right now is that Gerard turns over something that's not useful. It stinks to give your opponent a Courser of Crucifix, but that might be what Kevin has to do.
I don't think these other cards here are on the table. I know that Kevin's got the Disdainful Stroke, but he's already saving that for Atarka, so I think it has to be Courser.
That's what it's going to be. Didn't want to give him a Hornet Queen or a Sidisi back either. So now Kevin's going to untap. He'll take a draw. 3 mana. It's Mantis Rider. Everybody's coming in this time. Satyr Wayfinder is going to chump block. 3 damage will come across. We'll head back Fabiano's way. He's got to imagine he's playing against a counterspell here.
And, Disdainful Stroke's got to be the top card on Gerard's radar that he's concerned with. And let's see if he can find another discard spell. Maybe he can bleed it out with something else that requires an answer. But I don't think he wants to just throw the Dragonlord Atarka out there if he can avoid it.
Courser of Crucifix is where Gerard decided to start. Bile-Blight is the card on top of Fabiano's deck. And now the Players' Championship runner-up has some deciding to do. He'll go with Satyr Wayfinder, which means he's going to lose his Bile-Blight. Murderous Cut, Sylvan Caryatid, and Thoughtseize are the other cards he'll lose. No land there, though Drown in Sorrow on top of the deck. But that's not an answer to Mantis Rider.
And that's the thing that we saw upend Gerard in the earlier match against Jeskai Aggro, and the thing right now he has to find an answer to.
Tasigur will allow Gerard to play multiple spells in a turn. But again, still not an answer to the old Mantis Rider. Looks like Tasigur may resolve. Kevin does, again, have a Disdainful Stroke in hand. He might be thinking about it.
Nope, Dragon Lord. It's a Lord of Dragons.
It is. That is accurate.
The card Kevin will be hard-pressed to beat if it resolves, so that Disdainful Stroke is going nowhere.
Tasigur does resolve. Kevin's draw for the turn, I believe, is a Narset. So Jones is doing a very obscure balancing act here of playing an aggressive deck while also kind of playing a control deck.
And the Narset here is a little bit funky because now Kevin has to decide if he's going to try to go out of his way to protect this. The Mantis Rider has to be off the table in terms of chump blocking. It's the only thing Kevin's really got going on here. And if this Narset dies for very little activity, that's tough for Kevin here because he's running out of resources to work with. He does have a dig to refuel with, but that is looking like it's going to be his entire turn.
Drowning Sorrow was the draw. Thoughtsea is now on top of the deck. On Fabiano's side, you see the lands. There are 6 of them. Core Surf Crewfix, Satyr Wayfinder, Sylvan Caryatid, and Tassiger. The 3 eligible attackers are coming into the red zone. We'll find out where they're going, if it'll be the Planeswalker or if it'll be Kevin's life total. And it looks like we are avoiding Narset altogether. Excuse me. Actually, we are going towards Narset. I take it all back. Just did get confirmation from our table spotter on where that attack is going. So Gerard is going to activate Tassiger.
And there's the downfall he was looking for. Just needs an answer to Mantis Rider.
Yep.
Kevin's got some other stuff going on here, but the Mantis Rider is enemy number 1 at this point.
There goes Satyr Wayfinder. Narset going to go down to 1.
And Gerard doing all that inside of combat because he doesn't want to get Drowning Sorrow back. He wants this once, but not again.
There is Drowning Sorrow. Forest will come in. Top card, Duress.
Gerard passed up on the downfall there.
I don't think he's too worried about Narset.
Well, I thought Mantis Rider might be the concern.
Sure.
But Duress is excellent here because that could open up the path here for Dragon Lord Tarka, and that's a lot to get through.
Narset's going up. Not a hit. There's a Battlefield Forge.
So is that a 3/3 flyer and a Planeswalker with 2 loyalty?
Looks to be.
That's a really convenient number.
That is convenient
for a
isn't
Tarka.
It? Yeah. That is really nice.
That's just how you draw it up.
Mm-hmm. Jones has to reluctantly pass the turn back. Fabiano will draw that Duress. Top card of the deck is a copy of Llanowar Waste. He'll play that off the top of his deck, trigger the Courser. Temple of Abandon may be coming next turn. We'll see. Here is Duress to lead the way.
And this is the bind here. Because if Kevin casts the Dig Through Time now, then Gerard gets whatever the best card is. If he waits and assumes that Gerard is taking the Disdainful Stroke, and then Gerard takes Dig and has some other way to play through the Disdainful Stroke, that's really bad news too.
So he's got to lead with the Dig Through Time. And that's exactly what Kevin's going to do.
I suppose Kevin can try to find a second copy of Disdainful Stroke, and then he's pretty safe. I mean, the game's still getting away from him a little bit here. His board is deteriorating. He's working with worse resources, but he can at least avoid Dragon Lord and Target from resolving. Because if that comes down, Kevin's in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, that's it. That's what this entire game is based around now. Well, there's a second Disdainful Stroke and an Ojutai's Command.
So this is pretty good here for Kevin. Dragon Lord Talker is off the table for this turn because there's 2 copies of Disdainful Stroke in hand. Gerard might actually have to just take Ojutai's Command here and try to power through the Disdainful Strokes, and that's not easy to do either.
Ojutai's Command is what he has selected, so he'll try to power through those Disdainful Strokes. Attacking time. Narset down.
This is still very bad news for Kevin if Gerard can put together a removal spell for the Mantis Rider.
We might be getting to the spot now, too, where Gerard just says, all right, you've got 2 disdainful strokes, play a Tarka finally. Just let you counter it, move forward.
Maybe. I think that he has the out of just activating Tasker a bunch of times and finding 3-mana plays to make in the meantime. His hand would have to get really good, I think, for him to do that because Tasker gives him such a powerful out with his mana.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because Tasker, I agree with you, does give him a powerful out to his mana, but I think that Kevin is able to give him enough cards that don't matter with the Tasker activations. For example, with this one, he can just give him a card that he can counter with Disdainful Stroke and maybe keep doing that and make it difficult for Gerard to be able to actually find something that matters.
It's true. Gerard's graveyard does have a lot of garbage in it.
Do it again. I imagine he's going to hand off the old carry at it here, probably. Yeah, you can have that. Back to Fabiano, we're going to go. Looks like the draws of Reclamation Sage. But Gerard has had issues with Mantis Rider, and the other match we saw, he's having an issue with it again right now. Though you did mention he passed up on that Hero's Downfall.
Yep, he did have an option. I think Gerard was in a position where he says, I'm doing so much powerful stuff right now that I'm just looking for high impact plays. It's not a good use of my time or energy for that downfall, but I was a little surprised when I saw it. I just assumed Gerard would take it and kill the Mantis Rider.
Gerard might activate his Tasker on the upkeep here. That's why the pause. Because he knows that he's drawing a Reclamation Sage, which is rather poor given the situation. Though if he does want to activate Tasker right now, it does force him to commit 4 mana on his own turn.
That 4 mana is not going anywhere else. So it's basically just an issue of do you want to draw a Reclamation Sage or a random card?
That random card will be Temple of Malady. And Kevin will give him a card back. Looks like it was Reclamation Sage. Now Temple of Malady is a draw. Corsair Krufix on top of the deck. Can Fabiano work his way out of this situation?
A very odd game here. This is one of the spots where Tasker's lost a lot of its impact just because Gerard's graveyard has too much stuff that doesn't do anything. Though he's getting close to getting around that. I mean, we're down to just the Drown in Sorrow, and I suppose the discard spells that Gerard's not really looking for.
There's Temple. That'll trigger the Corsair. Gerard in this situation here can't even really afford to play a card like Satyr Wayfinder. It certainly seems tough to, just because it's going to fill it up with more rubbish potentially. So there's carry added.
I also think it's fine for Gerard to take a Corsair here because once he has a second Corsair in play, one of them gets through inside of combat. It's a reasonably impactful play that plays underneath the Disdainful Stroke, and the life gain is significant here. So I don't think Corsair's really that bad.
Jones will draw. 2 Disdainful Strokes in hand. Mantis Rider in play. Trying to ride that to victory. 3 more damage. Fabiano down to 5. And now here's Prognostic Sphinx. This will make things very tough on Gerard.
That's a great follow-up here. Gerard's deck is ill-equipped to handle this.
A lot of players have moved towards Dragonlord Ojutai. Jones opting for the Sphinx.
Well, it is much better in Stoke the Flame matchups.
It's true. Can't figure out this card. This thing ran rampant all over Pro Tour Journey to Nyx.
And for all the awesome stuff that Dragonlord Ojutai does, it does just eat a downfall a good percentage of the time. I think it's very different in the token strategies because once you have a Sensi in play, you can do some finagling with any spell.
Here's Corsair. Might be time for Wayfinder just to find a land to stay alive. Outpost Siege, Bile Blight, Outpost Siege, Llanowar Waste. Only one land for Fabiano to take. So there's a land on top of the deck. It's an Urborg. That'll trigger a Courser twice. He's up to 7. What's the next card? Satyr Wayfinder. Gerard does not have much difficulty getting through his deck. He's just having difficulty finding answers to the Mantis Rider and the Flyers.
Yeah, in terms of, who's up in terms of card count, what's the card advantage fight like? It's not even close. Gerard's drawn 1 million extra cards. He's activated Tasker a bunch of times. The Narset that Kevin played did very little. Actually didn't find any cards at all, but it's possible Gerard just doesn't find the answer to these Flyers, and Kevin can squeak out this game.
Going to the air is such a potent strategy against these green mid-range decks, be it Abzan, be it Jund, heck, be it Sultai too.
Yep.
Sultai is one of the few decks that actually handles Flyers a little bit better due to the Salumgars that are available. Fabiano doing some math, seeing what's available. He could just sneak in some damage there.
Well, at this point, he just has to dump whatever spells he can on the table, preferably ones that cost less than 4.
Reclamation Sage certainly fulfills that bill. Kevin's untapping.
Now, look at Gerard's board here. Something to keep in mind. If Kevin makes the obvious play of just attack you with my stuff, say go, and Gerard just has a removal spell for Mantis Rider, Gerard can kill him on the crackback.
Yep. Kevin does need to be careful. That's for sure. What's actually a little interesting about this too is that Gerard might be able to set up a little bit something strange with Outpost Siege.
Set it to dragons.
Mm-hmm. Not that card drawing mode. When those creatures die mode. Kevin gonna shrug his shoulders. I think he realizes, well, I can't stop attacking, so here he comes.
He could conceivably just only attack with Mantis Rider, leave the Sphinx back on defense, and then attack for lethal next turn. But because the only thing that plays around is a removal spell, and if Gerard has a removal spell, Kevin's in a huge bit of trouble anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Probably better just push on the damage through.
That's what he's gonna do. See what Kevin drew. So he's tapping mana in his main phase for once. Goblin Rebel Master post-combat. Pass that turn back.
It's a jump blocker.
Fabiano is untapping. And he will be drawing. As the clock winds down to just about 12 minutes here in game number 2. We might see some speed magic in a third game if we get to one. Fabiano going to control that draw step
Still
again.
with the ability to manipulate with Tasker here, which is why you see him setting aside those lands.
Satyr Wayfinder, Reclamation Sage, see you later. Don't have a great look at the top card of Fabiano's deck. See if we can get a better look at it. Kevin's going to give him Reclamation Sage off of that Tassiger activation. Gerard now trying to figure out if he should activate Tasker again. Leads me to believe the top card of his deck not very good.
Well, it's either a kill or he's dying on the way back, so the information's pretty face up at this point.
Looks like Fabiano reaching for some mana here. Activate Tassiger again. Again, this is all before the draw step. Wooded Foothills is 1. Outpost Siege is 2. He'll pass his graveyard over to Kevin.
And Wayfinder seems like the safest thing to do. Gerard doesn't have enough mana left over to, Wayfinder and then find something really good and then to have Gerard manipulate the graveyard in such a way that Tasker gets it back. That's just not happening. So.
Yeah, mana's too bottlenecked at this point. Kevin just taking his time to weigh the options here between that Wayfinder, Drown in Sorrow, and it looks like Outpost Siege. Seems as though it's a game that Kevin has sewn up nicely, thanks to his flyers. And those sustainful strokes have been important too.
Yeah, Thoughtseize, I suppose, is an option here as well.
They give him Outpost Siege back.
Remember, Kevin's still with the disciple strokes in hand, so we can afford to give him back a 4.
Fabiano going to take his draw. His copy of Bile Blight. And this is important that Kevin actually made the attack to put him down to 1 this turn.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like that attack from the previous turn, because the only thing that not attacking with Prognostic Sphinx lets you do is play around removal. But Gerard then gets to, you know, he's only at 4. He's getting life with his coursers and so forth. So it's really important for Kevin to, I think, push the pedal to the metal there, risk a little bit that maybe Gerard has 2 removal spells and you just die. Because I think the scenario where Gerard has a bunch of removal spells, Kevin's in a bunch of trouble anyway if he doesn't attack.
Gerard trying to figure out if there's any way he can get through these last points of damage. Looks like he's going to send all the creatures in. Kevin would like to do some blocking here. So he'll take his time, figure some things out. He just wants to make sure he doesn't make some sort of egregious error, because it looks like he should be good to go for this game.
Yep, even if Gerard triggers his coursers, Prognostic Sphinx is still lethal on the way back.
But in situations like this, sometimes you can overthink or underthink. So I'm going to take a moment to make sure, okay, I don't think there's any way that I can die. And with these blocks, I think he should be good to go.
Yep. Kevin's not dying here. Prognostic Sphinx still available, as is Mantis Rider.
Gerard looking through some things, going to lose some stuff. Kevin will lose that Rabble Master. Some damage will come across. Kevin will go down to 5, but with 2 disdainful strokes in hand, as Fabiano plays a Forest, goes up to 2. Excuse me, goes up to 3. Pass the turn back. Kevin will draw. He will attack with his flyers. And Gerard will scoop up his permanent. So Kevin Jones is going to win game number 2 here. A little frustration here for Gerard. Maybe he feels like that's one that slipped away.
Well, I mean, he had every resource you could possibly ask for, but took a lot of hits from Mantis Rider, which we saw, you know, that story earlier when Gerard played a very similar matchup. And Prognostic Sphinx is a card you see very little of, but it was perfect for that spot.
It was great the entire time. So let's go to game number 3 here between Jeskai Aggro and Jund Midrange. And for these guys, not a lot of time left on the clock. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be a short matchup.
Under 7 to go. I mean, both of these players, their decks do produce draws that are capable of closing a game very quickly. But assuming there are no mana stumbles, I assume this will be a pretty long affair.
And we'll see if the players do have time to get it done. Action going to be underway here in just a moment. But we're going to talk about our Season 2 schedule very quickly. We're here in Syracuse, of course. We kicked off Season 2 last weekend in Richmond during our Season 1 Invitational. Joe Lissette did win our Standard Open there with Jeskai Heroic. We don't know who's going to win here in Syracuse or in Providence, which is next 2 weeks, excuse me.
We got a short season here, Syracuse, where we're at right now to kick off the season. We're off next week for the Pro Tour and the State Championships. Head over to starcgames.com/states for more information. Providence, Cleveland, Portland. Now, this was the show that was in Seattle. It's been moved to Portland, May 2nd and 3rd. So make sure that you're aware of that, because we are no longer holding that show in Seattle. After Portland, we head on over to Dallas for a Standard Open, a Legacy Open in Worcester, Massachusetts, and then the Season 2 Invitational in Columbus, tied to the Origins Game Fair. Modern and Standard will be the Invitational format in a 2Day 20K Modern Open Series event, June 5th through 7th. Meet you, Matthias Hunt, in the booth.
Looking forward to all those dates. One of these 2 players could win our Season 2 Points Championship, which would send them to our Players Championship at the end of the year in Roanoke, Virginia. 16 competitors, $50,000. get the opportunity to do battle against Brad Nelson, the defending champion, Jim Davis, the Season 1 point champion, and Jacob Wilson, our Season 1 invitational champion.
Congratulations to him, very well deserved. An impressive comeback against Reed Duke in the finals.
Can't say he didn't earn it. You beat the Duke in the finals. You earned it, buddy. Both these players gearing up here for game number 3. Fabiano will be on the play, but just about 5 minutes left, so I'll be surprised if they can finish it, but I know they'll try. Certainly the deck with Mantis Rider can get the job done, you have to imagine. Gerard going to lay out his 7 cards. He'll get ready to go. Kevin with one more quick shuffle. A draw, not the end of the world for these guys. I'm sure they'd rather come to a natural conclusion, but
yeah, this is one of those spots where it's not going to ruin anyone's chances of making day 2, since X2 and 1 should be good at a tournament of this size. But it's early enough in the tournament that, you know, you got 2 players. It's 3 match points for a win, 2 for a draw. In terms of both players' overall performance in the tournament, they're best served with there being a winner here. You would rather, in this spot, you would rather win half the time and lose half the time than draw 100% of the time.
I agree. Temple of Malice, how we'll start things here. 4 minutes left to go. Temple of Epiphany on Kevin's side. Top card goes to the bottom. Back to Fabiano. It's a Forest. That's a Sylvan Caryatid to Kevin. Shivan Reef. He'll pass to Fabiano. Courser. Resolves. Temple. Trigger. Top card. Outpost Siege. Little slow given the time, but Gerard will leave it there. Pass it back. Jones with a Temple. Top card. Stays on top to Fabiano. He'll draw that Outpost Siege. Hornet Queen on top. In for 2 is a nice place to start. Jones down to 18. That's a Forest. That'll trigger the Courser. Here's an Outpost Siege.
And Gerard willing to run this into Disdainful Stroke with Hornet Queen on top and a lot of expensive stuff in his deck in general.
Well, it's resolving. We'll see if it's Cons or Dragons here. It may not matter because there's an erase, so see you later. Battlefield Forge, pass it back. Hornet Queen the draw. Thoughtseize on top of the deck. Courser in for 2 more. Jones down to 16. Is it time for Sidisi? Looks like it is. Undead Vizier.
And this could just be Sidisi with the intent on beating down. Gerard may not exploit here.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he wants to exploit, though. Kevin's going to step away. It looks like he does have a question on exactly how this does work with the exploit trigger and all that stuff. And I guess some people like to refer to it as the exploit trick, but with exploit on the stack, if you kill Sidisi, nothing really happens then.
Yeah, Gerard does not have the option to tutor at that point.
Because Sidisi is no longer in play. So I imagine that's what Jones is asking.
Yeah, if I kill Sidisi with the trigger on, might mean that Kevin would rather use Valorous Stance here than one of his very precious Disdainful Strokes.
Jones now back at the table. He'll use Disdainful Stroke to get that off of the table. Jones will draw. Mystic Monastery. He'll stop Fabiano in the draw step. Valor Stance will take care of the Courser. Turn that down. Thoughtseize. Let's see your hand, Kevin. 2 Valor Stances, Jason Ingenuity, and a Dig Through Time.
You can see Kevin is definitely committed to the going long plan here.
There goes the dig. Here's the Siege. Back to Kev we go. He'll pass the turn back with Jason Ingenuity at the ready. Swamp will come in. Caryatid. Whip of Erebos. Outpost Siege, as you can see on Cons. Now here's Jason Ingenuity. 3 cards coming here for Jones. Gerard has really accelerated his pace of play. Feels like he can win this one.
It feels like he's advantaged right now. Did not see the Disdainful Stroke in the hand last turn. Is close to Hornet Queen. Whip of Erebos is in play. got card advantage engine online. This feels like a good position for Gerard.
It does. Hero's Downfall is the reveal. There's a Temple of Malice. Top card becomes the bottom card. There's a Hornet Queen. Ochiai's Command. Looks like it might be playing the role of Cryptic Command, and it is. Counter target creature spell, draw a card. Though Kevin is out of the woods yet because there is a Varabos in play.
Yep. Needs to be able to answer that as well. Or Gerard can still win the game with the leftovers of the Hornet Queen.
There's dig through time. Jones going to take a look at the top 7. Of course, take 2 with them. Consult the grip here very quickly. A couple copies of Valorous Stance over there. Gerard knows about those. Mantis Rider an option here for Kevin. He'll take one of them.
And nothing here too exciting, as a lot of his creatures are about to get locked out here by the Hornet Queen trigger on the re-up, but nothing to be gained by taking Secret away, so might as well take a land over that. Mantis Rider is still potentially productive.
There's Prognostic Sphinx. Pass that turn back. It's turn number 1. Murderous cuts the reveal. Take a draw. Fabiano's got turns 1, 3, and 5. Can he figure out a way?
It's going to be real tough against Prognostic Sphinx on defense.
Step 1 looks to be reanimate Hornet Queen with the Whip of Erebos. Four insects will join the battlefield. Hornet Queen has haste, the rest do not. There goes the busy bee. Jones will take 2, he's down to 14. The follow-up here for Fabiano. We will see. He'll use Murderous Cut. That'll cause Jones to discard a Mystic Monastery. There goes Hornet Queen. That's it for Fabiano's turn. Turn 2 here for Kevin. For Kevin, he's not going to be able to win the game. It's all about not losing now.
It wouldn't surprise me if you even just said no attacks, because there's nothing to be gained by marshaling an offense here, and he might die on the way back.
A little bit surprised to see the attack.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin has really anything that he can find at this point that allows him to get a kill in time.
22 is a lot to have to deal over the course of 2 turns. And he is not a Jeskai Ascendancy deck, so the attack there is a little bit surprising to me.
I mean, Gerard's got 4 points in play. He's got a Whip of Erebos in play. I think it's unlikely that he's able to win the game, but you never know.
There's a block. There goes Prog Sphinx. There's a defensive Mantis Rider. Pass that turn back. Fabiano revealing a Temple of Malice, drawing a mystery card. Turn number 3 of extra turns. Gerard will start with the Bile Blights. Mantis Rider is leaving the battlefield, it seems. It'll stoke. Get an insect off. Gerard looks like he wants to activate Whip again, and he will. Targets at EC. Gerard gets to exploit. Tasker might be an option here for Fabiano. That's one of the first cards he went towards. Can he deal 13?
13 seems pretty tough.
Over this turn and his next one. That's what he's got to try to do. Dragon Lord Colligan is an option.
As is Wayfinder Atarka and get it back with Whip.
Yeah.
Is potentially a line of play as well.
There's Temple. Top card very quickly becomes the bottom card. Here they come. Valor Stance will take care of Sidisi for good. Jones will go down to 11.
If Jones is going to do with that anyway, there's a little bit of a risk in allowing Gerard to tutor.
Yeah, you got to kill with the exploit on the stack.
Yeah, because, you know, Gerard gets to search his deck for any card that could produce something good potentially. I don't know, but
that is
if you're going to do that, I think you should just do that straight away.
That's the power of tutoring, is here's an anticipate. Kevin has found a card he's happy with. There's Shivan Reef. Here's in hostilities. And that ought to set us up for a draw. I think it was already pretty locked up for a draw. I think with enough time, Gerard's probably going to win this game. He's got Outpost Siege going. Thoughtseize is an insane draw.
Yeah, he's got a pretty commanding advantage, I would say.
The Thoughtseize actually is the kind of card that solidifies things here, which has got to be a little bit frustrating for Gerard, because by casting Thoughtseize and he tutored for Dragon Lord Colligan, it makes it so this game would be so easy.
Yeah, Kevin would have to draw extremely well here. He's still a deck with Dig Through Time, so you never know what kind of running draws he can kind of cobble together, but... Although on the flip side is that Kevin would have just cast the end hostilities like that if he wasn't playing for the draw.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that Gerard looks pretty heavily advantaged here.
And Gerard's doing a bunch of math to see, is there any way I could kill you? Yeah, there goes Valor Stance. 6 mana. Yep, there's the Dragon Lord. A turn 5 extra turns. Obviously, Gerard is in a fantastic spot. These players will shake hands. I believe the result will be a draw. When we do have confirmation, we will certainly let you guys know at home. But Kevin Jones, Gerard Fabiano, battling it out to the bitter end. And it looks like it will be a draw between these two players. Yep. So they'll both move on to 6-1-1.
Very good position. Very good position there for Gerard. Not actually a hard lock at that stage because Kevin still has